Alright, what you see here is a Hampton Bay Redington 4 ceiling fan. I got this off of Facebook Marketplace over 2 years ago. Well, actually, it's been 2.5 years now, almost 3. I got it back in November of 2020. And it was one of the first fans I picked up off Facebook Marketplace myself, driving, instead of having someone else get it with me. So, yeah. Now, you guys might be wondering why is there another video of this, and that's because I figured out why it was wobbling so much. So I took down the other 2 videos I did of it, and it was during the iMovie video that I figured out what was causing it to wobble so much. So I'm redoing the first 2 videos to show it now that it barely wobbles. Still has a bit of a wobble to it, but nothing near as bad as it was before. What was wrong was that the screws that tightened towards the down rod were loosening up easily, so I got a flathead screwdriver and I tightened it that way, and now it has no issues with the wobble compared to before. This fan is in pretty good shape for its age. I only paid $10 for it, so I'm not complaining. I drove out over an hour or so to get this. And if it was for anything else, I mean, if it was something I really wanted and it was that cheap, I would have done the same thing for it. But this fan was just in such good shape that I didn't want to pass it up. There's a white and black Hampton Bay logo, which I really do like on it, instead of the white and chrome that you tend to see on white Hampton Bay fans from this era. Not that I don't like the white and chrome, it's just that the white and black I feel goes better, especially with this fan, as there's a lot of white and black components to it, like the vents, the lining, the motor housing, and the spotlight. Plus it holds up better, I feel. But because the black paint on it's a bit stronger than the very light chrome coating that you put over it, or the brass coating. But yeah, this fan is actually made by Air Cool. It's not made by King of Fans, so it's definitely more solid than the brushed steel one that I have. It is from, I think it was March of 2005, which was the first year they introduced these. Well, first year they introduced them with the spotlight. If you watch the new fan video, it shows the date. It's hard to see it down here, so I'm not gonna really bother showing it up close. But yeah, this one's made by Airco, and the way you can tell is that the spotlight pole chain is not actually on the spotlight; it's on the switch housing. And if it has it on the switch housing, then it's made by Airco. Now, I'm not sure if they made Airco variants of the brushed steel one, and the white and brass, and the antique brass ones. To my knowledge, the white one is the only version they did like this, with the air-cooled variant. It was back in 2004, I think, that they first introduced the Redington 4s. In the catalogs, they don't say anything about it until 2005, when they showed this one in the catalog. But the white and brass and the brushed steel ones, they still showed it as a Redington 3. At that point, the Redington 3 was already discontinued. So that's just another error of the Home Depot catalogs. But yeah, they did sell a version of this without the spotlight, with the regular 4 light as Redington 4 with pole chains, and that's actually harder to find in this version. This version of the Redington 4 you don't really see too much. Typically, the Redington 4 that shows up the most is the brushed steel one, but that's also because that one was sold from 2004 up until 2010, I think was the last year they sold it. In 2011, it was discontinued by then. But yeah, it could have been 2010 was the last year, and it was discontinued then, but I'm not 100% sure on that. But I do know, I remember seeing it in 2009, the brushed steel one. The white one was already discontinued by then, unfortunately. I think it was up to 2007 that they made a white one. I think that was the last year they sold them, which is a shame, because if they sold this back in late 2012, along with the brushed steel one, I would have replaced both the Carriage House 2 and the Hampton Bay, or the K industrial in my bedroom at the time, with Redington 4s. A brushed steel one for the living room and a white one like this for the bedroom. But at the time, we weren't looking to replace the living room fan, but when I had gotten around to actually replacing it with the code up Regency. If they still had a Redington in brushed steel at the time period, I would have put that in the living room in place of it, but that was before I was really allowed to start collecting fans, so yeah. But this fan actually performs very well. I'd say it's honestly on par with a Hampton Bay Cameron, but it has been quite some time since I tested it down here, the brushed steel one with the cobalt blue blades. But the air movement on this is actually very impressive. I wouldn't be surprised if it has a 188 motor in it. It could have 172, but I know for a fact that the, the performance on this is definitely not from a 153 motor. I have not opened it up really to investigate it, but I do know it has the motor in this one's actually larger than the one in the brushed steel one. So, yeah. Let me go ahead and show the light. This one just has them go all on at once. There's no three-way setup with it, unfortunately. But, yeah, let me shut off the lights around me. So yeah, these lights are actually the exact same ones that were in my Panama 2 in my bedroom. I've recently swapped them out because I put a new remote receiver on it and a new remote control. And the lights that were on it, which are these, I'll just unscrew one of them. These green light LED spotlight bulbs. I got them for $1 each at the Ace Hardware near me with the Summer Breezes. 5-bladed ones from the 90s era. They had a bunch of these, and I wish I'd gotten more, but they had them for $1 each. And I figured I'd buy them for my bedroom. At the time, it was for the low profile, the white one I was in the bedroom, but then I put it on the Panama 2. And they've been there been used in my bedroom for a good 5 years now. And I figured I'd swap them out because one, they were buzzing when I used it with the new control, whether I dimmed them or not. And two, I figured I'd put bulbs that are a little bit brighter, that are 75 watts instead of the 60 watts that these are. So, yeah. But yeah, let me go ahead and start the fan off on low. So for now, I'm just going to be using these light bulbs for testing purposes now. Because I have read that when it comes to bulbs buzzing like that, when it comes to them being on a remote, that's usually due to them getting worn out. And these light bulbs have been used a lot over the years. So, well, because they're in my bedroom. So, yeah. Now, this is a fan, had they still sold this when I got my Glendale for the bedroom. And when I was in the mood more for a residential fan and not the KDK industrial in my bedroom, this is my go-to. Like, I remember even before we put up the KDK in my bedroom here in the United States at the old apartment, seeing this in the catalog in 2005. And I was just saying to myself, and this is back when I had the baseball fan installed still, that this would have been this would be a really cool fan to have in the bedroom. So then I ended up going with the KDK instead, but honestly, had I not chose the KDK then, this actually could have been what I picked out for the bedroom and replacement for the baseball fan. And it definitely would have been a good fan to use in the bedroom too at your own apartment. Especially seeing how it performs. I wish I had gotten one then, but at the same time, who knows what the condition it would be at this point. So I guess in some ways it's better. But also the KDK I am honestly more glad I went with that because, yeah, it's a KDK, but it's also in mint condition. It was from my uncle, so who's not with us anymore. So in that regard, it's more sentimental for that reason. It was really cool because I've always liked the Redington 3 and Redington 4. But when I saw the white one of a spotlight, I was like, that really made me want the white version a lot. Now, at the time, when we were thinking of putting a fan in a spare bedroom at the time, which ended up being my bedroom for when I started the channel, because me and my mom had swapped bedrooms, but at the time when I was younger, me and my mom slept in the same room, and that was a spare room, or like a messy room of sorts. We were originally going to put up the Hunter Augusta remote that I have, but well, that was in the backyard one time when we came back from the Dominican Republic, and yeah, we got that before the KDK. I remember it was like a little bit before that year that it was like way 2005 that we got it, I think, or that I found it in the backyard. But yeah, I remember seeing that fan there, and my dad had originally tried to put it up in the bedroom, but he didn't have a mounting bracket for it, so it ended up just staying there. So yeah. But back to this fan, it has a good low speed to it. It's dead silent, and honestly, something I've honestly tried to replicate with every fan for the most part that I've installed in my bedroom. I honestly, well, not every single one, but with the residential ones that have been installed over the years that were with a spotlight, I honestly tried to replicate them to look like this as much as possible, because this is one that I wanted in the bedroom as a kid. That was a residential fan, but by the time I actually went ahead and chose a residential fan after having a KDK there, this was already discontinued. So when I had the Passport 2 installed there, and I put it with Spotlight, I was really trying to replicate this with the bleached oak side, obviously. But same thing with the Infinity, that was just an all-white look. And those two fans, when I had them installed in my bedroom, I was really trying to go replicate something that looked like this. Though the Infinity definitely worked better because it had more of a contemporary look like this fan does. But, yeah. The fan really is not a bad performer though. Like this one's definitely better made than the King of Fans when the metal parts of it are more solid and such. Person that sold this to me, he had it it was in a kitchen in his house, and honestly was never used much from what he told me. He just used it more for the light. And it still actually had the original light bulbs that were in it from when the fan was small, because these used to come with smaller incandescent bulbs and such. And they were still in there. They actually, I think they all still work too, but I think I'd use LEDs just because it's hot right now and I don't want to feel heat from the incandescents. Plus, these lights give off better lighting too, so yeah. But it was really not that much grease on it, like for being in the kitchen. It was more so dust, not so much grease, if anything. There were some parts that I did have to clean off a bit, like the spotlight and the top of the motor and the canopy areas and such. But for being in the kitchen, it really did pretty well after all those years. All right, now for medium. But yeah, I remember like when I saw it wobbling when I first tested it, and I was thinking it had to be the blades that were warped, even though they were in pretty good alignment. But after I noticed it was wobbling a lot, and it was more so the motor housing that was wobbling, and not so much the down rod wobbling with it. That's when I realized it was it has the pin with the thing in it so it wouldn't fall out, the down rod, but that's when I realized that those set screws that like really lock it in place so it doesn't wobble around as much, that those screws were loose. Now I did make sure to tighten them before I tested it originally, but I guess those screws needed a flat head to really tighten them well instead of a Phillips head. So that's why it wobbled so much before. And since this is a fan that you don't really see often, I really felt it deserved a better video with it not wobbling so much. It still wobbles, but nowhere near as much as it did before. This is honestly something that I'd even consider installing in the kitchen. And I usually wouldn't put a fan with a spotlight in the kitchen, but this is just a fan that I feel looks really good in a kitchen setting, that I'd actually break that rule. The only thing is that I do like the bleached oak blades on it, but I honestly really do like this fan with the white blades for a kitchen install. But I wouldn't be opposed to having it with the bleed stroke side facing down. The only issue is that the kitchen that we have now, even though the Low Profile Plus has white oak blades, they actually do go better with the look in there instead of the bleached stove in terms of it looking cheap. Plus, I know my mom likes the lighting better on the Low Profile Plus instead of a spotlight, because I had asked her before, before I even put up the Low Profile Plus, if she would want something with the same lighting as what's in the living room, which is the spotlight, and she said that she prefer not to have something like that in there. Because originally what I actually was thinking of doing, aside from putting, when I was taking down the brass passport too in that kitchen, I was actually gonna, instead of just putting up the Progress Lighting Air Pro Hugger, which was the original plan, I did think of putting up the, there was a few options. There was that, the white infinity that used to be in my bedroom, though I didn't really want to have two infinities up. The Hunter Right at Home in the cashmere finish, which I almost went with, but it's just that one, I felt that it looked, since it already had a yellowed look, I feel like it would look a bit out of place there. And then there was the Low Profile Plus, which was another option. So since I ended up going with the Low Profile Plus, I honestly do like it because I do remember seeing a lot of Hugger fans like in kitchens as a kid with 4 lights in like a brass finish and such. So just seeing a somewhat updated looking one, though, even though the fan's already 20 years old, it does bring back hell like a childhood setting and such. So yeah. Yeah, this fan though, like for a Hampton Bay one, like I remember these going for over $100. I think these are like $140. I could be mistaken, but I do remember these being one of the more pricier options. Yeah, I'm not sure why they discontinued the white one. I'm wondering if it just didn't sell as well as the brushed steel one. I mean, it is a good possibility. I mean, usually when people install white fans, it's just... Usually when people install certain fans, I notice like when it's a white fan, they just pick whatever to install. When it's like a brush, or if it's like a nickel fan, they want something that actually kind of goes with the room, not just whatever. So the white finish is kind of like just it doesn't have to have a certain look. It just needs to, like in terms of looking traditional, contemporary, modern. White's like the one finish that people don't really, I guess, think about in terms of looks. It's just more so the finish itself. If they usually it's like the finish that people pick if they want it to just blend in. So usually they'll go for the cheaper options. Not always, but out of the other finishes that they tend to sell, that's usually the case with the white finished fans. All right, now to move it up to high. As you can see, it's wobbling a lot less now compared to before. And since there's really not that many videos of these out there, I really didn't want to have the video I do of it be where it's wobbling so much, especially if I figured out the issue that was causing it, because since I got to show it the bleach stroke blades as well, I didn't want the video of it with the white side being it wobbling so much, and then the bleach stroke side having it wobble very little. Especially since it's obvious that the blades aren't in that bad of alignment for it to wobble so much like it did before. The fan, I do know it has a pretty good spin down time on it. It's almost 4 minutes, so when it does come down to spin down time, I definitely do want to give you guys a heads up for that. The fan, though, when I did pick it up originally, it was on a 6-inch down rod. This down rod is actually from the 42-inch Glendale I got back in 2015. As I figured, since it's the same size down rod, this would have came with as the standard option. I figured I might as well just use one like that, because I see now. Back when I tested the brushed steel Redington 4, I was going to test it with the down rod originally. The issue is that since the pull chains on that one are longer than the ones that came with the white ones for some reason, where they would hang way below the frame, like the fan pull on this one's here. On the Redington 4 and brushed steel, it would be like almost down to here, and the white one, with it being in center, was like almost all the way down to here. And I just felt that it would have looked really strange having it hang that low on camera, since I would have had to zoom it out like this just to get it in the full frame. So I figured I'd just flush mount that one, just for it fitting well, because I didn't want to cut the pull chains shorter, because that is how it came originally. So I wanted to keep it as original as possible. But yeah, this fan is dead silent, has no bearing issues at all, it's not humming at all. Like, it's actually quieter than all 3 Hunter fans I have installed. The Infinity, the Low Profile Plus, and the Bath and Dressing Room. Bath and Dressing Room has some bearing noise, and when it's running at a high speed, it kind of just shake a little bit, even though it's flush mounted. Infinity hums a bit and has a tiny bit of bearing noise, and the Low Profile Plus just hums a bit. Granted, all 3 of those fans are flush mounted too, so there is that to take into consideration. But I feel like even if this fan was flush mounted, it probably wouldn't hum that much, and if it did, it would probably very little. At the same time, those fans are old. Well, 2 out of 3 fans are a lot older than this one, being 10 years older than this. So there is also that to take into consideration. But yeah, it definitely really blows a good breeze. Like, it is actually a very impressive air mover. And for a Hampton Bay fan, it really is not what you'd expect from it, to be honest. Like, it's definitely spinner motor Hunter air movement, if not more. It's not stack motor air movement, but it's definitely above your typical spinner motor Hunter fan. And with the amount of Hunter fans I've tested over the years, I can definitely say that with confidence and not be iffy about that claim. And this thing has to have a 188 motor in it, or 172. But I'm leaning more towards the 188 because the air movement on this feels a lot like a Hampton Bay Cameron 2. And even though the Cameron 2s were made by Aircool, not Aircool, King of Fans, the build on it, for the most part, like the switch housing and such, there are components of it that are similar enough that it doesn't surprise me. Plus, that was more of a higher end King of Fans product, whereas a lot of the King of Fan products from Hampton Bay sold were pretty cheap, whereas that was like the one exception. This one moves a lot more air than the brushed steel one that I've tested in. Even though that one was flush mounted, it's moving like 3 times more air than that one does. And it's literally the same model. It's just one's made by Aircool, one's made by King of Fans. Yeah, this is definitely a fan that if you find one, and especially if it's the Aircool made version like this one, and it's not too expensive, it's definitely worth getting, especially if it's a childhood fan for you. But if it's for replacement stock, it's definitely not a bad fan for that option either. For me, honestly, I'm not using every space to stop because it's a child fan. But if someone's just looking for something to put up, it's definitely not a bad fan at all. It's definitely one I actually recommend for people who to use, like for non-collectors. And it definitely does the job very well. Like, I definitely can say I feel like it just outperforms the Infinity, to be honest. And that's definitely a better performing fan that they used to sell at Home Depot from Hunter. Shout out to Redington fan. Do spin down. Let's reverse it quickly. But yeah, now for the long spin down. Yeah, it's interesting because the guy said that the fan release wasn't used all that much, but the blades really aren't warped on it at all. I mean, they definitely do have a tiny bit of a warp going, but it's not like so very severe where it was like never used, like he claimed. So I'm wondering if they probably did use it often, but maybe for like a very brief period and they'd shut it off, not like running it nonstop type and such. I know this is this redoing these two videos is going to throw off the schedule, but since it's a fan that I definitely am glad to finally have in film, it's one that I don't mind redoing. Especially since it had such a bad wobble in the original video, so I definitely like to have the fans being in the best shape possible when it comes to testing them down here, so I'd rather have it actually in better performing condition. Even though it's not really condition, it's just that something was loose on it, so it was making it wobble a lot more. And plus, since it's such an easy fan to assemble, since it's a quick connect setup fan and such, it's not like it would take too long to put it back together or to take it apart and uninstall it. Although the blades are still in the exact same position and such, so because it's haven't taken it down just to redo the videos, it's been up. I mean, it's earlier. It's this same day that I filmed these earlier videos that have now been deleted and that you're seeing this replacement one of, but since I already had those ones scheduled, since the original one went out and such, I just figured, you know what, maybe just kind of reveal that it's been tested, but I don't know, just the scheduling was kind of off, so since I already had the first one went up, and I still needed to finish the other ones and make space to edit and the other ones, so that's why this one, instead of it being this one being uploaded Tuesday, right after the original one went up Monday, I had to make some space on the phone that way. I mean, by the time like you see it, it's not gonna be Tuesdays, what I mean, but because I know I'm gonna have to take some time to free up space just to edit them and such. Even though the only one that really gets edited decently or like edited heavily is the iMovie ones. Both the normal test videos of commentary and without commentary, I do edit them to a degree, so I do need space to save a duplicate video of each of those. So, yeah. I remember when I tested it on reverse, so back when it wobbled a lot, it barely wobbled at all in reverse, which was something that really struck me to be odd. So now that it's not wobbling almost at all, let's see if it does the same thing now, or if it ends up wobbling even more. Right now for medium. I'm honestly really considering if I was to swap out the low profile plus in the kitchen to put this up in its place. It's just a light kit that I know my mom wouldn't be the biggest fan of, but I don't know. I might, like, even though I don't want to have to put a medallion on it, this fan, it doesn't really wobble at all, so it's not like it would have the same issue as the Passport 2 that was in there. But the low profile that's in there, it's also one that, when it comes to getting parts for it, swap out if something gets damaged, it's an easier one to find replacement parts for it compared to this one. I mean, both of them are uncommon models, but with a low profile plus, I mean, it is, but it isn't. I've been seeing a lot of them showing up ever since I got that one. Whereas this, I feel, is a lot more uncommon. I mean, granted, they were both sold for just a few years each. I mean, I'm not sure when the low profile plus was introduced and discontinued, but this one I know was only sold for a few years, but they also had a lot of other models that were cheaper, and this one I do know is one of the more pricier models, so that does hinder its sales compared to something that was a little bit cheaper in terms of price. Yeah, even on reverse, it barely wobbles at all either. And whenever I get my own house, this is definitely something I can see myself installing, like maybe in a spare bedroom, maybe a kitchen install. It could be the next kitchen fan for when I have my own place and such, but who knows? But it's definitely a fan that I'm definitely planning to install when I get my own place. Maybe not right away. Maybe I'll like play around with a few fans at first, see which goes best. But I know for a fact this fan's definitely gonna have it installed at some point. But it's just a fan that I like way too much to not have installed. Just right now it doesn't work because I mean it could go in the kitchen, but I'd rather leave the low profile plus there, to be honest, and wait to have this installed somewhere where I wouldn't be as worried about it getting out being in the kitchen. So yeah. So that'll be it for this video. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and stay tuned for more videos to come.